Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Welcome back to another video. Long time no see for me and you. Apologies for sort of lack of uploads during the international break. Have tried to organise a couple of podcast episodes, but they didn't quite tie into those particular guests' free time and whatnot over the international break. So apologies for, I suppose, only the one upload over that period. So yeah, sorry about that, but we're back. Today it's match preview time. It's Birmingham City versus West Bromwich Albion, kicking off at the St Andrews Trillion Trophy Stadium in the EFL Championship on Sunday at 3 o'clock. I know it's a bit of a weird one for some of, including myself, to get our heads around. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, a derby or a rivalry game, which I'm sure we'll discuss later on in this video. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Albion get on after this international break. It's time to refresh and regroup and maybe start to have a more positive end to the season. But yeah, before we crack on with this match preview, where we'll be giving you an opposition insight into what we can expect from Birmingham City, predicted lineups from both sides, and also my general thoughts on West Brom at the moment, and of course a little prediction at the end, make sure you subscribe to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel for more content like this. Comment your score predictions and thoughts ahead of the game down below. I'd love to hear them. But yeah, without further ado, let's crack on. It's match preview time. It's West Bromwich Albion versus Birmingham City. You're watching the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel. For match previews, match day vlogs, match reactions and more, make sure to subscribe to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel. So let's get started. We'll begin by talking about the opposition, and I'll sort of dive into, I guess, sort of now whether this is a derby or a derby day, a local derby, whatever you want to call it. Because yeah, of course, that's what the club have branded it as. That's, I'm sure, what a few fans will brand it as well. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, so make sure you drop your comments down below. But of course, I consider our main rivals to be Wolverhampton Wanderers and probably Aston Villa as well, considering we've been, I suppose, in the same sort of league as them for quite a while, and always seem to end up in the same division somehow, and the same with Wolves really. But of course, Wolves with in terms of distance, I think is probably of course the biggest rivalry. But of course, you got Birmingham City as well. I wouldn't say they're a massive derby. I wouldn't say this is a derby. I'd say it's a local rivalry. You always want to win any game really, but I think you always want to win ones against teams that are nearby. But I don't really. I will admit, I do take a look at Villa and Wolves' score every so often, but I just never seem to really take note of Birmingham City, and that's no unjust thoughts towards them. I just don't feel they're particularly a derby as such. I think they're more of a little bit of a rivalry. You want to win and you want to beat them and stuff. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I personally think it's more of a local rivalry than a derby day or a real flare-up of a game. Just let me know your thoughts down below. But Birmingham City, 19th in the EFL Championship, 14 points away from the relegation zone. Of course, those points deductions have really taken its toll on the division, sort of creating this massive gap between the middle of the table and that bottom four. They've had no win in the last 3 games, and no goals scored in those, and then just 1 win in the last 7 games as well. So yeah, in terms of Birmingham, they've always been that sort of side in the Championship for this season where you just don't know what you're going to get from them. You don't know whether you're going to get a good performance. You don't know whether they're going to concede 5, they're going to score 2, they're going to score 3. You just don't know. They're so unpredictable. They're currently managed by Lee Bowyer, of course, formerly manager of Charlton, been around the block in terms of his playing career as well, in terms of Birmingham, West Ham, Newcastle United off the top of my head if I try to remember them. But they're currently managed by Lee Bowyer. He's made some decent signings throughout his time. I think, especially on loan, there's some good ones in there. I think Juninho Bacuna's a really big coup. I think a lot of Birmingham fans have been impressed by him, and from what I've seen of him, so am I. So yeah, I do look forward to seeing what he has to offer, of course, on a signing from Rangers. Then you've got Tahi Chong, of course, there's a loan signing up in that sort of attacking midfield area. He's been quite good as well, by and large, with a few injury problems in there as well. I think it's a difficult time to be Blues manager at the moment. Obviously, they had some real issues with the ownership. You always see the hashtag on the timeline, and their owners don't seem to really be bothered. I can't claim to know the inside knowledge on that, but all I can say is there are issues with the ownership, and I'm sure a lot of Birmingham cities would like to see the back of the ownership in charge of Birmingham City. But in terms of on the pitch, their top scorer is Scott Hogan, who scored 10 goals. He's on 49 Championship goals at the moment, so If he scores against Albion on Sunday, that'll make it the big 50 goals in the division. So, yeah, will be interesting to see how he gets on. And then top assists, you got Jeremy Baylor on 4 assists. You got quite a few on 3 as well. Jordan Graham and Troy Deeney as well on 3 assists too. So maybe not the most creative of sides judging by the numbers. But in terms of their team as a whole, goals conceded per game, 1.5 goals conceded per game. That's nearly 2 goals per game. That's a bit worrying. They're 21st in the division for that particular area. However, they've got 13 clean sheets, which puts them 8th in the division. So, as I said, that's the unpredictability of them. They could, complete a defensive washout and not concede any goals, and it'll be a clean sheet. Or they could end up going and conceded 2 or 3. It's just a mad team to watch at the moment, Birmingham City. I dare say a few people I saw on the Twitter timeline saying that Birmingham could finish in the playoffs. I don't think that's quite come to fruition. However, I also saw lots of people saying we were going to go up automatically, where that hasn't come to fruition either. But in terms of goals conceded per game, as I said, they're quite high up in terms of their goals. Accurate passes per game, they're very, very low down. Bottom of the league, in fact, 204.8 accurate passes per game, 24th in the league. Average possession, 44%. They're 22nd in the league for that. Here's a little bit of a predicted 11 for them. Neil Etheridge in goal, former Walsall goalkeeper, former Cardiff goalkeeper as well. Nico Gordon, a young lad, 19-year-old centre-back, scored relatively early on into his career at Birmingham, only 4 games into it, in fact. Mark Roberts, a centre-back as well, in a back 3 with Max and Collan as well. Jordan Graham, as I said, on the right midfield, has been doing very well in terms of creative threat and adding a little bit of spark to them, along with Onel Hernandez, of course, been doing very well. Formerly was on loan at Middlesbrough earlier on in the season. A midfield 3 of Ivan Sunic, the Croatian, in the middle of the park, likes to break up play and very tenacious in terms of the tackle. Then Juninho Bacuna in the midfield, as I said, signed from Rangers, and a very good prospect by all accounts. And then Gary Gardner, of course, also in that midfield. And then up front, Scott Hogan, top scorer, and as I mentioned, Tahith Chong, a big threat for Birmingham City. But yeah, that's them. That's what we got to expect from them. We don't really know what to expect from them, but that's the best I can do for you in terms of stats. West Brom, currently 12th in the EFL Championship, 12 points above Birmingham, but 7 points off the playoffs. We're 4 unbeaten at the moment, so that's maybe a little cause to be a bit more optimistic and a bit more positive. But ultimately, we just don't know what we're going to get from either side, really. Albion, of course, we saw them set the heights against Fulham of performances, set the standards really, and saw them really set the bar very high. And you hope that would be the start of perhaps you can start a run, maybe nick a playoff space. But of course, we saw against Bristol City, everything that we have seen from this group of players became pretty clear again. That they just can't handle the pressure. They're fine to win against teams like Fulham. They were fine to take points off City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United last season, but not fine to take points off people like Crystal Palace last season or anything like that. So yeah, so it's frustrating that when the pressure isn't on, they really thrive. But when the pressure's on and they have to put in the performance that they need to get somewhere, it just seems to all crumble. But I hope they'd replicate that performance against Fulham. But again, this is an expectation that we are going to win the game, and I'm not convinced that the players can handle that in this particular game against Birmingham. But yeah, Daryl Dike is a big talking point, and it's unfortunate because he's injured until the end of the season. I think that's really disappointing. I hoped to see him, once again, and it's really disappointing. Of course, this season is starting to feel I won't say a little bit cursed, but something along those lines. I do feel like there's just a few too many things going wrong. I mean, the star signing, the first time that you spend money on a striker, probably since Jay Rodriguez came into the club. I mean, it just feels a little bit upsetting that we're seeming to lose Daryl Dike unlikely to see him for the end of the season. Maybe if we did get playoffs by some miracle, maybe we might see him in that campaign, but I'm certainly, with playoffs looking out the question, I wouldn't be risking him anytime soon. I'd maybe leave him until next season, and I think that's fair. But yeah, that's kind of Daryl Dike, and of course he's injured for the time being now, and that's quite upsetting. And yeah, we do wish him all the best. I think there's been a lot of perhaps negative comments towards Dike on social media, and I think that's very unfair on a lad that's probably feeling a little out of place at the moment. He's come to a country, of course he has been there before, but he's come into a new country. He's trying to adapt and settle, and he can't really do that on the pitch, which is probably the most frustrating thing for him. And of course, Steve Bruce did offer him the chance to go back to America and complete his rehabilitation, but of course he denied that and said, "I want to stay here." But yeah, back to Albion. We're third in the league for the best defensive record in the division. Still can't believe that in terms of our goals conceded. But here's a little predicted 11 for you for Sunday's game against Birmingham City. Here's what I'd go for personally. I'd stick unchanged from what we've been seeing recently. Sam Johnston in goal, a back three of Carl Bartley, Shemi Ajayi and Matt Clark. I would also like to see Dara O'Shea given a go. And of course in goal I'd like to see Alex Palmer given a go if playoffs are mathematically confirmed not to happen. Jake Livermore in the defensive midfield spot, Darnell Furlong right wing back, Connor Townsend left wing back, centre mids in front of Jake Livermore being Taylor Gardner-Hickman and Alex Mowat, and then of course Karlan Grant and Callum Robinson. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how they get on, and I'm hoping for a win. I'm going to say 1-1. I don't think we'll win because I know that this is a pressurised situation where Albion are expected to get a victory, and of course we know what happens when we're expected to get a victory. We tend to be like a rabbit in the headlights and can't get the victory. But yeah, that's the end of this match preview. Make sure you comment your thoughts down below. Drop me your opinions. How do you feel going into this game? What's your predictions? How are you feeling about DK? It's pretty big news. Is it a rivalry? I'd love to hear it. Is it a rivalry, derby, whatever you want to call it? Drop your comments down below. I'd love to hear them. But yeah, that's the end of this Baggies Podcast match preview. Make sure you subscribe for more, and a podcast coming out after the game on Sunday, on Monday. So yeah, that's the end of this episode, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.